Welcome to Highline Excel Class number 7. Hey, if you want to download this workbook and follow along, click on my YouTube channel, then click on my college website link, and you can download this workbook. If you're enrolled in the class, just go to Week 2 website. Hey, we got to talk about the VLOOKUP function. This is one of the most common functions there is, and it does something very simple for us. Here we have a column of sales, sales rep, and we need their commissions rate in a formula. Now, the first trick is we need to get from this little table, because this has the sales rep and their commissions rate, we need to get that commission rate in each one of these cells. Let's see how to do that. Here's Sue. So we look at Sue. We go over to the table. We look through the first column, and when we find Sue in the first column, we jump over to the second column. We get that commission rate, we put it in our brain, we come back over to here, and we type in 0.0195. Right? That process of doing it by hand is exactly how the VLOOKUP function does it, all in an instant. So let's see how to do this. I'm going to type this out, equals VL, and in 2007, as soon as you type VL, you see the VLOOKUP, you can hit Tab. Now, this screen tip here is really polite. What VLOOKUP needs first is the lookup value. Now, you remember when we did this by hand, we had to look over here and say, oh, yeah, that's Sue who we need to look up. So that's what the lookup value is. So I click there. Comma. The next thing is you need to tell the VLOOKUP where the table is. Now, when we did this by hand, we looked at the whole table, right? You have to highlight the whole table. So I'm simply going to highlight this whole table. Now, we need to lock this, so I'm going to use my F4 key, because when we copy this down, we're going to need that locked. Now, the next thing is, and notice the way these screen tips work is that argument is bold, and it's telling you, hey, you better type a comma before you can get to the next one, comma. Now, it says column index. All that means is you got to tell the VLOOKUP which column has the number to bring back over here to the cell. So what is it? Oh, the lookup value right here, this B3, this little Sue thing, that's always going to be in the first column. Lookup elements can be in any subsequent columns. In our case, there's only 1, 2 columns. So we have to tell it a number 2 here for this column. So I'm going to type a 2, column index, and then comma, this lookup range lookup right here, all it wants to know is, are we looking up an approximate value or an exact match? Now here's the deal. If you are using words, use exact match. Now, you can avoid using the exact match by sorting it perfectly, but forget it. Just if you're using words, just put false, or don't put false, put 0. We can always put a 0 for false and 1 for true. Later, we'll see how to use approximate match for numbers like tax tables. But that's it. We need to tell it to find a word in the first column. Right? Because it's going to look for Sue, and it wants to find an exact match. There's Sue. Close parentheses, and then I'm going to hit Control Enter. Now, watch this. I'm going to double click and send this down. And sure enough, let me click down here, for example, and hit F2. Look at that. The blue one, the relative cell reference is there, and the locked table is still there. Now, it did it for all of them, but how did it do it? Let's click over here, hit F2. See, it took that chin. It went over to the table. It looked down the first column when it found chin. Oh, there it is. It then went over to the second column. It grabbed it. Because we had a 0 there, it's looking up an exact match, so it found exactly CHIN. It saw that 0.025, it brought it back to the cell. So guess what? That means the VLOOKUP brings a thing, either a word or a number or something else, back to a cell. That's its goal. It takes this lookup thing, goes over here, finds another thing, and brings it back to the cell. Now, to finish this one off, we could then multiply it to get our commissions earned. But I'm going to leave that for just what we're going to do in a second. All we saw here was how to use the VLOOKUP to retrieve something from a table. Let's go to this next sheet. Let's do the same thing here. We have the same little table. Here's Sue Chin Twinette and these commission rates. And we want to get commission here. Let's do it again. Equals VL. Now, if you like to use dialog boxes, you can click on this f of x, and there's some nice helpful hints here. Lookup value. It says down here, is the value to be found in the first column of the table? Oh, so later if you forget what the lookup value is, you come here and you read it. It can be a value, a reference, or a text string. All right, so we're going to click right here. Let's tab table array. Let's read this. Is a table of text, numbers, or logic values in which data is retrieved. Table can be a reference to a range or a range name. In just a moment, we'll use a name, but right here, we're just going to use cell references. So look at this. I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to be sure and hit F4. Tab, column index, is the column number in table array from which the matching value should be returned. And it reminds you here, the first column of values in the table is column 1. Now, when I first started using this, I used this extensively. I'd use this dialog box, and I'd always read them. I'd forget, oh, what column it is. Is it column 1? Oh, yeah, it's telling you that's this one here. So if you want to return something from the second column, that means you have to put a 2 here. And finally, it says, is the logical value. Find the closest match in the first column, sorted in ascending order. Oh, we'll see that when we do taxes. Put true or omitted. That means you can leave it out. Or find an exact match false. But forget it. Put a 0. Don't type false. 0 is false. 1 is true. Click OK. I'm going to double click and send that down. Now, come on over here. We're going to now calculate our commission. And it simply equals whatever the sales were, 2 cells to my left, times 1 cell to my left. Control Enter, and then double click and send that down. Now let's do it all together. And here's a great way to cheat when you're doing bigger formulas. You come here, you hit F2. You copy the whole thing here like this. Control C, escape. Click in here and hit F2 to put it in edit mode, and then Control V. Now watch this. Remember, what's the point of the VLOOKUP? It just delivers the commission rate. And watch this trick. I'm going to highlight this whole thing, and I'm going to hit the F9 key. That's evaluate. See how it's just delivering 0.05 to that formula? I'm going to Control Z because I don't want to leave it that way. I want the VLOOKUP. Control Z is undo. And now at the end, I'm just going to say times and get the sales. So this formula, VLOOKUP, is looking there, and then this part is looking there. Those are all relative cell references, so I can Control Enter, put the formula in the cell, keep the cell highlighted, and then double click and send it down. I'm going to click in the last cell and hit F2 to check it. And sure enough, it looks like I got those right. And when I scroll over, it still has the table. I'm going to click Escape. Let's do another example. Oh, this is going to be great. This is a tax example. This is an approximate value. This is the other type of VLOOKUP you can do. Here's the situation. We want a commission rate is not assigned by a person. It's assigned by how much you sold. So if you sold below 1,500, you're going to get 0. If you sold 1,500 or more up to this 5,000 but not including it, you get 5%. As soon as you hit 5,000 and all the way up to 6,000 but not including that, you get that 0.065. And finally, you get anything exactly 6,000 or above, you get this rate. So let's see if we can do a formula. Notice this is not like the names where we had to look up an exact match. We want 1,500, 1,600, 1,700, all the numbers in between these. That's why we're going to call this an approximate match. Now, I'm going to add a label here just to make this a little bit easier on ourselves. So what I did is here, I added a category label to describe exactly what the VLOOKUP is going to do for this line, exactly what it's going to do for this line and this line. So in order, here's the sales, 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 sales. This is going to be our lookup value. Let's try this number here and do it by hand. We need to retrieve the right commission rate. 5,356. We're going to put that into our brain. We're going to go over to the first column. We're going to go racing down the first column. And the first number that we bump into that's bigger, notice that's 5356, so we bump into 6,000, right? We jump back to this row. That's the row we're going to use. And what does it mean? All the values that get this 0.065 are sales that are greater than or equal to 5,000, but less than 6,000. Notice the sales is right in the middle, right? So it's looking over here. That greater than sign is pointing at the sales and equal. So anything equal to 5,000 or greater than it, see there's the sales, but also less than 6,000. That's why when we took this into our brain, doing it by hand, raced over to the first column, which is required for VLOOKUP, it looks in the first column. Notice they're also sorted, smaller, bigger, bigger, called ascending. We take this value, race over to the first column, go racing down until we bump into a bigger value, and then jump back to this row. Now, the VLOOKUP then says, well, this is the first column. This is the row you want. Which column do you want me to return? I want to return number 2, so I take that 0.065. I come over here and I type 0.065. Now, I don't want to do all these by hand because it's a big hassle, so we'll use VLOOKUP. Ready? Equals VLOOKUP. If you like using the dialog box, by all means, I'm going to use this screen tip. The lookup value is this, comma. The table is going to be, hey, we just want these two right there, first column, second column. I'm going to hit the F4 key to lock it. It's reminding us we need to type a column to get to the next column, the next argument, column 1, column 2. Since we want to return the thing from column 2, I'm going to type a 2, comma, and then the range lookup. This is where we have to do not false, and if this is off the screen here, not false for exact because we're not using looking up a word. We want approximate match. So instead of true, I'm just going to put 1. Now, this is the default, so you don't have to put it. You can actually leave it out. I'm going to put it in. It's just easier if you always put it in. All right, Control Enter. And did it get it? Looks like it did. Let's double click this and send it down. Let's look at this one, right? 2,000. I'm going to hit here and hit F2. Oh, it's looking at the right one there. It's still looking at the right table. This 2,000, right? It went racing on the first column. It bumped into the first bigger one, 5,000. Jumped back here, went over to the second column, and brought that back. So the VLOOKUP's goal is to bring this rate either back to the cell or to the formula. Now, how do we calculate commission? I'm going to click here, equals whatever your sales are times your commission rate. Those are relative cell references. Control Enter, and double click and send it down. Now, let's try it all in one formula. I'm going to do our little trick again. Hit here F2, scoop it out, highlight, Control C, escape, click here, F2, Control V, and then times, oh yeah, our sales. Control Enter. Double click and send it down. Look at that, just like that. So that's how to use, this isn't a tax table. This is often used with calculating taxes too. This was a commission rate where we had a certain number of sales. Later in this class, we'll actually see some great tax examples where we use the VLOOKUP and an approximate match. Now, whoops, that's scooting over there. Now let's do 2 more examples of VLOOKUP. Now here, I want to do the same thing we did just a moment ago, except for I want to get the commission rate from a different sheet. So let's look over here. I'm going to have to click all the way back on this sheet right here, Assumption Sheet, and there's our little table. Now, instead of having to make the formula and go back over here in the middle of our formula, we can just use names as we saw in week 1. I'm going to highlight this whole table, and notice this table has a 0 and a 0 commission rate, because oftentimes people maybe don't have any sales, and that VLOOKUP needs something to look for, right? So if you have 0 sales, it needs to return a 0. I'm going to highlight this whole table right here and go up to the name box. Click there. And call this COMM lookup table. No spaces. Hit Enter. All right, I'm going to click over here and then test to see if it's right. Column lookup table. Boop. That way, we can use that name over in our formula over here, and it will look to this table. Now, I'm going to change this one to $150 just so we have a value to check for that 0. Let's do our formula here. All right, you ready? Equals, whoops, let me scoot this over here. Not only that, but I have equals VLOOKUP. And the lookup value, oh, we're looking up the sales amount, comma, the table. Hey, I forgot what the name of the table. I thought I called it COMM something. Well, you can use your F3 key, F3, to paste a name. And there it is. I find it, and I double-click it. Comma. Now, the column index, I know from that table that it's 2. Comma, and the range lookup, I'm going to use either 1 for true or omitted. I am going to omit it. By the way, if you don't believe that that's OK, click here on f of x. Click in this argument right here and read it. It says, is a logical value to find the closest match in the first column sorted in ascending order is true or omitted. So we can omit it, and it will just do that. I'm going to click OK. Oh, it got a 0 for that. And I'm going to double click and send this down. Look at that. It got all of the rates correct. I'm going to click all the way down at the bottom and hit F2. And there it is. And we could do our same things where we calculate our commission and our formula, use this cell times this cell, or the whole formula together there. I'll let you do that on your own. One last important example. This is the other main type of thing you can find and use VLOOKUP for. Is sometimes, I scroll over here, I have a column, and I'm going to double click this here to expand it. Double click there, double click there. Oh, you have a little table here, right? It has the lookup value, but there's one column here, 2 column here, or 3 columns. You can even have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or however many columns you want. So if we were going to use VLOOKUP to look up the cost for a particular boomerang, we'd have to put column 3. So let's see how to do that. I'm going to name this right here. Name this. Oh, look. Wait a second. I missed it. Oh, look. 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. Oh, very good. And then we have our boom name here. So we'll select it and then go ahead and use our VLOOKUP to look something up. I'm going to highlight this whole table right here. Come up here and name this. Let's call this BOOM lookup. Enter. I could click right here and test it by going boom lookup. Now I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to click in cell F40. So I'm going to click in F42, and yeah, that has the boomerang name. But then we want to look up the description and the price. Let's just do this by hand right here. If we were to look at this table, boom2, we'd take this into our memory. We come over here. Oh, we bump into an exact match, boomerang 2. We'd go over to column 2, get that 25 meter thing, Control C, and bring it back over here and Control P, right? Then we need to look up the price, so we take boomerang 2 into our memory. We go down. Oh, we bump into that. We go column 2, 3. We grab that 15. We come over here, and we type in a 15. Here, I'm going to Control ZZ on that. We don't want to do it by hand because sometimes we have huge tables or invoices. Notice this is the setup for an invoice. So we could retrieve, just put the product here. It'll retrieve the information from some table. We put our units here and calculate our sales. So let's do a VLOOKUP. See if I can make this a little bit bigger. Click in this cell and type equals VL tab in 2007. Earlier versions, you have to type the whole thing. Our lookup value is this. There's our screen tip. It reminds us we need a comma. The table, I'm going to hit F3. I'm going to double click my boom lookup. F3 is the paste names keyboard shortcut. Comma. Now, description, that's in column 2. Price, that's in column 3. But we're just doing description right now, so I'm going to type the number 2. Comma, and do we want exact match or approximate? I'm going to put 0 for false because we're looking up words. Now, I want to do one last thing. I want to take this cell reference right here, and I want to be able to copy this formula over to this price column. So I want to lock the column reference. So I'm going to hit F4, F4, F4. Column reference. So when we copy it over to the price column, it'll remain locked on that cell. Control Enter. And then I'm going to click with my crosshair or angry rabbit, click and drag, and sure enough, that didn't work. What happened there? Oh, we better click here and hit F2. Oh, we have to change this to a 3. So I'm going to highlight that and type a 3. Oh, it did it. Let's change this to boom 4 and see what happens. No way, 40 meter and $23. Now let's calculate our formula. Equals the number of units times whatever this price is. Now it's got $115 formatted nicely. Let's go ahead and format this. I'm going to go up to the home ribbon. Actually, I'm going to click in this cell right here. Go up to the home ribbon and get that paintbrush, and then click right there. That copies the format only. Now let's try it. We're going to type boom 1. Enter. Notice it changed to that, and that updated, So that's like a little invoice. Now, two more important things. One is I don't want to have to keep typing the product name is. I want to link that cell right there to this whole list. And we're going to use that doing data validation. I'm going to go up in 2007 to data. And then this little thing right here, I can't see it because my screen is so small. So data validation right there. And I'm going to allow what? This is data validation. We're going to prevent stuff from going in the cell we don't want. Not any value. I don't want any value. I only want those boomerang names, those product names. So I'm going to select list, source. Highlight this. No way. Now, nothing is allowed in this cell except for if it's one of these things. And it's going to have an in-cell dropdown. Click this, and now watch this. We have our little invoice simulator. We click on boom 4. Everything updates. Ooh, that's kind of annoying. Boom 3. Look at that. We have to click over there. Ooh, yuck. Now, one last thing. We could actually get around that by clicking in this cell, going to the home, and then there's an indent right there. I'm going to indent it again. So now when we click right there, that doesn't show up. Now everything updates nicely. One last thing. Let's click here. See that 2? Click here and F2. See that 3? There's a way to automatically get the numbers to increment as you copy a formula across the columns. Let's see how to use the column functions. Columns with an S equals columns. Notice there's a column and a columns. I'm going to select this one. And I want to put the range G45 to G45 because that's the cell I'm in. $G45 colon G45. Now, right now, the question, and I locked this one, but not this one. But notice the question is, how many columns are there? Well, it's G to G, so there's just one column. But notice this is locked. So when we copy this formula to the next column, this will remain G, but this will move to H. So the answer over here will be, how many columns are there? 2. Now, I'm going to copy this over. 1, 2. Is that a clever way to get incrementing numbers? And by the way, this little trick is used in lots and lots of formulas. Now, that won't work for us, right? Because what we really want is 2 and 3. But no problem. We click here, hit F2, and +1. Control Enter, and then click and drag it over. Now, I'm going to come up here and hit F2. This is an important trick because VLOOKUP is so common. And when you have lots of columns, you don't want to have to edit all the formulas. You just want one formula that will work in every single cell. So we just do our columns trick. Columns. Now, I'm going to be sure and look at where I am. This time I'm in G42. Since I'm going across the columns and when I want it locked, $sign in front of the G, G42, colon G42. Now, we know that is asking the question, how many columns are there in G? That's only 1. And we want 2 here, so we +1. Control Enter. No way. And copy this over. Oh, that is amazing. Oh, but yuck, what did that do? It brought the indent. I'm going to quickly point to the Smart tag and say, fill without formatting. So now I have a fully automated invoice system inside of Excel. And this is more common than you would think. All right, that's a lot of amazing things about VLOOKUP. When we come back, we'll do 3D cell references.